Yeah, Yevgenii's back. Yay! Woo!
Despite the fact that the company itself was quite successful in many ways, my air conditioning decided to start bleeding with water on my TV. Sorry, I know that's totally different topic, but that's the way how your podcast works, I assume.
But basically what I've done is I've picked up some Ukrainian idioms. Hello, lovely people. Welcome to the Distinct and Jovial podcast. My name is Dom, and I'm joined once again by my wonderful co-founder, Jerry. How you doing, Jerry?
Bonjour. Yes, I'm good, thank you. And privet. Have I got that right?
Yes, indeed.
There you go.
Yeah. And we have are you the second reoccurring guest or third reoccurring? I think you're the third reoccurring guest now.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
We've got to be
Anyway, hello everyone.
Yeah, Yevgenii's back. Yay! Woo! So last time
it totally feels like it was so much time since previous recording, and at the same time it feels like it was yesterday. So
yeah.
100%.
You do have. I think you have the shortest time between because you were. Did we record in January for February?
No, I think it was actually December for 1st of January.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was the first one of the new year. And then, Hooper was about a year and Swanee was about a year. So you have the shortest time. But no, I agree. It feels like simultaneously, think, oh my God, January.
Hopefully my wife never going to tell me the same.
No, but she might.
Jerry's does all the time.
Yeah.
Chloe does all the time. Yeah, you can't get away with that one.
No.
We've just started and Jerry already screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that unusual?
Not really. As soon as you mention Chloe, Rachel, or the giant douche or the turd sandwich, it's just... I just
You're
have to shake
fifth
my
in
head.
the pecking order.
I am. Yeah, I am. If that.
What? Chloe, Rachel, the dogs, you.
Mosquitoes. You've got other things in this house as well. Spiders.
Yeah, a couple of inanimate objects, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah, I'm below those as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I suppose it's just you and your wife that live in your flat, isn't it, Yevhenii? But you didn't, or have you, because you have spoken about your parents before.
No, it's just us. Fortunately. Don't have anything about, can't say anything bad about parents, but it's definitely better to live in a separate apartments.
Yeah. I've had a long conversation with one of my friends who has moved out for the first time at the ripe old age of 31, which just the economic times in these times, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And the discussion was about setting boundaries with parents, which is hard to do, really hard to do, to kind of go, no, I'm an adult. I love you and I appreciate you, but I'm an adult. And my mum won't mind me saying this because we had a discussion actually on Wednesday when they came to visit. I said I had to set a boundary. The big thing for me was car insurance. Like for me to do, it's like, no, I need to do my own car insurance. It's lovely that you want to help and do it for me and find the best deal, but I need to do it myself because without being harsh, mother, you aren't going to be around forever. So I need to learn how to do this while you're here so I can ask you questions. So yes, it was a good conversation. And yeah, my friend is now going through that.
It's a missed opportunity though, because you've got confused.com and compare the meerkat and things. So you could have had domsmum.com.
Yeah, it would have just been called thelegend.com, surely.
The Legend, yeah, of course. The Legend, thelegend.com for all your insurance needs.
Mum. I mean, that's it. She's going to use that for the rest of us. When this goes out on the 1st of September, I'm going to get a comment from a text from my mum that simply says, "Can you create me that website?"
Yeah, do it. Next thing you know, she'll be on TV.
Oh, don't.
Going, hi, I'm Dom's mum, also known as the Legend.
The Legend. Don't.
Actually,
looking for car insurance, looking for house insurance.
Oh, no, I've just got a picture of my mum being on the chase. because that's what my parents like
yeah.
to do, is quiz programs. And she'd get really irritated with herself when she gets all the sports questions right, because she watches no sport but seems to know all of the answers.
How does that work?
That is a conversation that you can have with my mother. Ask her that question.
And I think I will. I'll make a note of that.
It is the 19th of August today. It's a lovely, wonderful Saturday afternoon. It's been a good day weather-wise here in the UK. What is it like in Ukraine? Is it?
It's pretty hot. I think it's 30 plus right now, despite the fact it's
30
already
plus.
yeah, it's already 8 in the evening, but 30 degrees.
Yes.
Yeah.
30 degrees.
But I have air conditioning, so it's not that bad for me at least.
Wow.
Yeah, that's something that we don't have in the UK, is air conditioning in our houses or hotels.
But to be fair, you don't really need it. If you look at the business case, the number of hot days that we get in the UK, it just doesn't stack up, does it? Right,
Well,
your return on investment will be about 114 years on an air conditioning unit.
Interesting fact, I think I saw yesterday on Reddit the note that 73% of Saudi Arabia electricity used for air conditioning only.
Oh,
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. I 100% believe that, because
wow.
I would. It's on the bucket list to go over to that part of the world, whether it's Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, that thing. Disagree with their human rights and some of their other laws, but I at least want to experience their culture and do that. Privileged to, for example, I'm privileged to have been to Ukraine, privileged to have been to Jamaica, to a few other places, and get to sample the culture. And also because I'd like to watch the F1 over there, and that's one of the big things, is about that energy requirement to kind of get things in. But watching other people out there, it's like, it's 50 degrees in the desert, and you're like, oh, that's just.
I mean, how do you get your head around that? You want to go to the Formula Rosso, don't you? Is it Formula Rosso? Is it the fastest roller coaster in the?
Oh yeah,
in
that's
Abu Dhabi.
in. Yeah, Ferrari World is in Abu Dhabi.
Ferrari World, that's it. Yeah.
Yes, and it contains the fastest roller coaster in the world.
Yeah.
Which is very similar to Thorpe Park's, I want to say Stealth off the top of my head, where it just accelerates.
Oh, the one that goes up in the big.
Yeah, it just kind of goes up.
It just
and
goes
down.
up and then down. Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of get your face kind of.
I love
ripped
that.
off.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I do love roller coasters. We still haven't, as normal, we got distracted in our me trying to read out this. Can you next time? This is going to be fun. This is our 27th episode. Just as always, to make a note that the views on this podcast are our own and don't represent the companies that we work for or whatever else we're associated with. So please don't sack us or anything like that. That'd be very kind. Thanks very much. Right. I actually want to start this with a bit more light-hearted stuff. So I put in the two that you haven't done yet, Yevhenii. And I do have a couple of more questions around this, which I think would be really fascinating for hopefully others to read about, or your Ukrainian colleagues to criticize you about when you give your opinion, which I'm sure
that's going to be the case for sure.
Especially as that's basically what I got this week, is criticism in my food choices. Apparently, Jerry, a young small colleague of ours, disagrees with not putting not putting ketchup on bacon sandwiches.
I mean,
they're wrong.
It's still not a kiwi on pizza, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Kiwi on pizza. God, can't imagine it. Right, so I suppose the first question is are condiments acceptable for a bacon sandwich? Would you?
Actually, I don't have any opinion, or at least strict opinion about it. I'm pretty open with food questions, so it's fine.
Is a bacon sandwich a staple in Ukraine? It's something that we would probably have. No, yeah,
No, not at all.
And
Or maybe I'm not aware of. At least.
Yeah, I mean there is that element to it, isn't it? It's like, wait, which bit am I in?
Like every Ukrainian listening to this now will be going, I don't know, I eat bacon sandwiches all the time. What's Yevhenii going on
and
about?
just eating it during
What's he
listening to
going
this
on
podcast.
about?
Yeah. What do you want about Yevhenii? What do you want about? Yeah, hopefully not too cruel. Because like the bit that I kind of thought about from this is, I suppose at the moment you've got Russia trying to invade, and I don't know. Obviously, you're a big exporter of sunflower seeds. I want to say,
Yeah,
huge,
the biggest in the world, I think.
But I'm wondering, are there other? Obviously, you've got to import stuff. Are there other actually foods at the moment that are rationed, or is it still fairly kind of open?
Not sure, what do you mean? So can we import anything else?
Well, I mean, like, is there any food that's in your supermarkets that doesn't seem to have appeared, or that's missing from the shelves, or anything like that?
No, I think there was a gap for 3 months at the beginning, where we were able to notice that some of the products have been missing. But I think it's mostly because of the how it's called, like shipment chains, because we usually been exporting and importing a lot of stuff through the Black Sea, but now Russia kind of shut this down, so we had to rebuild everything with railways and we had obviously with railways and like car roads, imports and exports as well, but the percentage was much smaller because it's super cheap to do the shipments through the sea or ocean. So yeah, there was this case for 3 months, but then it's ironically that some of the products that been missing before appeared during last year. So for example, Dominic knows that I'm a big fan of Belgium Blue Moon beer. I know that. By the way, I'm now have quite a few buddies from Belgium who said that that's not a Belgian beer. It's been bought by Americans, so it has nothing with Belgium anymore. So we don't think that this is a proper beer, and just was making fun of me. But anyway, I like it, and the interesting thing was that it wasn't. I wasn't able to buy it anywhere in Ukraine before invasion. And I was able to buy it only in UK, Belgium, or some other countries I've been visiting. But since last year, I can buy it in pretty much every supermarket. I know that's totally silly and inappropriate example because I'm referring to a can of beer, but that's the case I have.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So no problems at all. By the way, maybe after this recording, I even send you. If I will be able to find the post on Reddit, which became a bit popular on the front page. So last year, our army liberated one of the cities that Russia took, Kherson. It was in November, and I think in like few weeks they was able to start the businesses that been shut down and rebuild quite a few buildings. And there was a post of supermarket in Kherson after the invasion and all of this, and people starting to complain in comments that, hey, I'm like in Germany or in UK or in somewhere, and my supermarket looks worse than this one. So I don't think there are any problems, fortunately.
I think it's like, actually, it probably relates a little bit to what I've mentioned it a couple of podcasts ago about the region beta paradox, right? That bit where things get so bad, you have to change it. Well, I mean, if your supermarket's been dismantled, that's so bad that you kind of need to rebuild it. Whereas I suspect that a lot of the, like, supermarkets and stuff that have been around in the UK that are a bit dilapidated, they're not bad enough for somebody to go, we should really kind of spruce this up. But they're just bad, and you kind of live with it. Actually, there's a small small version of a supermarket around the corner where they do like they do mini versions, and it was one of those pretty dilapidated. And when things get dilapidated, I don't know if this is the case in Ukraine, but Jerry, I'm sure you've probably recognised it. When things get a bit rough, like the crowd that goes there gets a bit rough as well. Shall we say?
It attracts a rougher crowd. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, where I live, it's like a bit like instead of the combine harvesters, it's the tractors with 3 wheels sort of thing. And instead of carrying like nice shiny, in nice new shiny coats and like flat caps, it's more like overalls, and I'm going to get stabbed by a pitchfork if I talk to the wrong person.
So what you're saying, Dom, is that before you didn't go there, but now you do.
no, before I didn't go there.
Okay.
But it's obviously got bad enough because they redid it. Because I went in and it was like the whole thing was shut, and I was like, this should just be shut. Like there's no room. They've redone it. It's really nice. And I ventured over there the other day and I went, oh, the clientele appears to have stepped up. There's no need for a security guard on the door or a traffic light system to check how many children are in the supermarket. So, it's one of those things that you kind of notice.
And to be fair, it's always easier to build something from scratch, especially if you know how to do this. And I think that's exactly the case why we have this difference in internet connections, because UK was one of the pioneers of implementing the whole solution. And this is the reason why you probably have a lot of legacy networks and all of these highways of the optical network. But when you're building it from scratch, knowing all of the experience, for example, from UK, it's really easier to build a better network.
Do you know what I love about that? Is somehow Yevhenii has still managed to get an absolute burn on your internet, Jerry, within the first 20 minutes.
He's not wrong, though.
No, he's not. He's not. That's what's brilliant.
I just love the fact that it's actually sometimes it pays to not be first, doesn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Is it I think it's this Top Gear special where they go out to, I don't know if they're still called Burma now or the Myanmar, as what they might be called, when they did the lorry special. And they went and visited that place and it had was it a 24-lane highway, but with nothing on it, because they're preparing for the influx. Whereas if you go to London, it's like single streets. And actually, I feel a bit of a nerd about this at the moment because I'm finding my YouTube choice at the moment is city skylines, where you've got like you build a city, and there's a lot around traffic management. It's like lane mathematics and bits and pieces where 3 lanes, 1 lane splits off, so have 1 lane and then drop down to 2. So so you've got a dedicated turning lane type things, and then the traffic builds up if you set the lane to do more than one thing, because people will just, admittedly, the AI in the game it can't quite figure it out, and it'll all queue in that first lane because that's just the way the game works. But as soon as you put a dedicated turning lane, they spread out. So it's a bit of a game hack, but it's one of those things just about like cities and internet things that when you build it from scratch, it's much easier.
Nice.
I think the only one that me and Yevhenii would agree on is not always the case is software development, where the best thing to do is to find one that works, copy and paste it, and then edit to what you need. You can't quite do that with bricks and mortar.
Not really, no. You can't lift and shift.
Yeah, well, they always tell you it's a lift and shift when you do software development, and it never is.
No, it never is. It never is.
I don't remember the last one that was actually a lift and shift.
There's no such thing anymore.
The last time I had a project like that, it was like, oh, is it going to be a six like month project, and it ended up being, I don't know, 2 years. It's like, it's just a lift and shift. It's a resking. No, it wasn't. It really wasn't.
Yeah.
Right. So, second food question: having meals at the wrong time, i.e., in the UK, having cereal. I've put having cereal for breakfast, which is the traditional one, but like where you might have cereal for at 10 o'clock in the evening. I've gone. You said you're a pretty open guy, so I suspect that you probably don't have set meals.
No, I don't. So I can eat anything at any point of time. So usually, to be honest, usually I can take what's so-called English breakfast, or I don't know, is it the thing even in English? In England, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this English breakfast I can easily take during the dinner. And with cereals the same, but I don't eat cereals at all. But yeah, I don't see a problem to eat them during the dinner.
Is there a traditional set of like you would like for you, like so for the UK, like your traditional breakfast would be breakfast cereal, milk, juice, toast type thing. Lunch would be like sandwiches, that packed lunch, sandwiches, crisps, some kind of chocolate bar. And then the evening would be a cooked meal, whether that be like anything from like, I don't know, roast dinner on a Sunday, for example. Although that's a bit ambiguous because you might have that for lunch. But is there a set of like Ukrainian traditional meals that you would say this is breakfast food?
Yeah, I think there are. I would say there are three main ones. The first one we can call Ukrainian French, I guess, because it's just a cup of coffee. Probably with a cigarette. The second,
That's the sort of breakfast I like.
That's Jerry. That's 1980s Jerry, kind of ready for
80s and 90s. I'll have you know.
That was your student days, university
100%.
days.
Used to wake up in the morning, reach out for the cigarettes, put the kettle on. Lovely.
Yeah, and the second one is omelette, I guess, or any type of eggs. And the third one, I think, at least I think it should be pretty common. It's I don't know even how to describe it. It's like, do you know the cottage cheese?
Mm-hmm.
But been prepared like tall pancakes, if that makes sense.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That makes sense to me. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
sorry,
yeah.
hang back. I say that again. So it's cottage cheese.
It's like
which is...
so it's like mini tall pancakes, but with the cottage cheese.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and usually it's served with. So, for example, during the whole summer, usually my wife and I have this breakfast with a set of different fruits, or
Nice.
or anything like this. So it's really nice breakfast.
Nice.
Yeah.
Probably now's a good time to tell you, Yevhenii, that the have you heard the latest about Subway?
No.
They're opening apparently 1,000 stores across Ukraine. They listened.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They listened to the episode and they thought they were so outraged about the fact that they said, "Oh my God, this guy reckons that we haven't got some kind of a clear proposition."
or maybe they just opening a legal entity so they can sue me for what I said.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So the 1,000 outlets, so that's phase one. The legal action, that's phase two.
Who's project managing that one?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just lift and shift.
What's interesting, actually, on Subway, that is a bit of a good segue. Well, it's not really a segue, but because I think you said you didn't see the purpose. I think it was the purpose of Subway, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What's interesting, the bit that makes Subway unique is the fact that you could have anything on anything, right? You could have like steak and cheese with like jalapenos and lettuce and onions if you wanted. Apparently, in this current cost-cutting, wonderful world that we currently live in, they're removing the ability to have anything on anything. So Subway is now turning into set menus to save money, which I was like, well, I know that Yevhenii said that there was no purpose to it before, but now there's even less purpose because the whole point was the fact that I could go and have whatever I wanted. Like I could have... I'm like, so maybe what they've actually, and this is genuine, by the way, this isn't like one of Jerry's jokes. This is genuinely like, if they listened to Yevhenii and gone, yeah, maybe we have no purpose. I know what we'll do is we'll run ourselves into the ground even more.
But I mean, it at least makes sense to generate more revenue if you
Yes.
just give up with a purpose and just want to make more money,
Yeah.
because that's your new purpose now,
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
which
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
quite sad.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we can obviously that's pretty much every company in the world's purpose is to make money. So at the moment, I think they're all doing the same thing. Where can we save money? Where can we charge more people money? I think
I think that's sorry, go on.
the biggest sting for me was the car insurance that went up 87%. It's like, ow.
What?
I know.
Come on, that's insane.
I know.
Based on what?
Vibes, I think. Just pure vibes.
Vibes. I'll give
I
them
think-
vibes.
I think I read because actually the insurance company that I'm with was mentioned on the BBC the other day, where they'd lost a load of customers. They'd lost something like 5 million customers or something ridiculous. But the amount that they're charging more, they're actually still making more money than before they had those 5 million customers. And I was like, yeah, they've raised my insurance prices by 87%, but it was still the cheapest. So what can you do?
That's interesting because just a few days ago I had a conversation. Sorry, I know that's totally different topic, but that's the way how your podcast works, I assume. So
Yeah, do it.
We never go on tangents.
yeah, so I had a conversation with my colleague that I feel like there is no reason, I mean, except generating more money and became a bigger and bigger company, there is actually no point of becoming a public company, because every single public company, even if they were kind of they have their mission, they trying to make their employees happy and so on and so on. Once you became a public company, you have your stocks on the market. The only thing that really matters in any circumstances is to generate more revenue. So the people that investors of your company are going to be happy, and that's really sad. And at this point, I understood that maybe the choices when you're making a choice to find a new place to work is find a company that is not public. And that's where I find myself. For many years, I've been using Reddit, and I really like this application. And I thought that, yes, probably that's going to be, at the moment at least, the only company I would work for if they open office in Kiev. And actually, they did a few years ago, but by some reason, they hiring only designers. And but you probably heard that a few months ago they started preparation to become also a public company. And the whole, I'm not sure if I can say it here, but shit show started with all of these cases trying to kill the third-party applications, add more ads, and so on and so on, despite the fact that the company itself was quite successful in many ways. But this aim to become bigger and became a public company, I think it's what's ruining them right now.
It's a real beef of mine. Right, and it's a really good it's a really random tangent. I don't know how we're going to get back to like what we've got.
Yeah, sorry.
No, but it's really good because obviously the Reddit stuff was like a massive like drama. Obviously they did the r/place, which where people can put pixels, so people get together and do stuff. And there was a lot around the CEO telling the CEO where to stick it because he killed off Apollo, which was the most popular Reddit application to read. But I've just finished my favorite series of books. And my favorite series of books is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And I think I've probably told some of this story before, but there is I call it a side quest story because it's not really germane to the main storyline. Like you could eliminate it and it wouldn't make any difference to the main storyline, but it's quite an interesting concept. And I think it was a good way for the author to get in a little like dig at like politics and money and capitalism. But essentially, one of the characters changes from the small magazine that she's a co-owner of to the editor-in-chief of a major newspaper, but the major newspaper is in trouble. Like it's set around 2003 to 2005, and the major newspaper is in trouble. And there's a conversation that she has with the CFO and the head of budget, where they're like, right, we need to cut more jobs because we're losing money. And she's like, they're like, oh, how are we going to do that? And they call it the cheese plane principle. Cut a job here, cut a job there. You got 5 on the sports desk, cut that down to 3.5. You've got, 2 on the politics panel, cut that to 1. Those types of things. And her role when she was hired as the CEO was to come in and revitalize the paper, basically, bring it back up to speed. And she's against these cuts. And the second meeting that she has, she starts going into, she starts looking at it, and she's like, how long can the newspaper bleed? How long can the newspaper not make a profit? And she comes up with a 0 profit budget, which means that taking a load of savings but not getting rid of staff, so that she's got she can revitalize the paper. Then more people will buy it, right? Because if you keep shaving people, the paper gets smaller, less people buy it, then you have to keep shaving, blah, 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 and then you just bring yourself into capitalism. And it's funny, the CFO basically turns around and says, well, are you suggesting that we shouldn't pay our shareholders dividends? And she basically says, in a short word, yes, you shouldn't. And this is the problem that I think it's a big problem that we've had the last 2 years. If you look at places like Shell, Admiral, things like that. What these companies are currently doing, and this has got really political, so apologies, but what these companies are effectively doing is they are making sure that they can pay their shareholders, and are therefore moving all of the prices onto the customers or the employees. So they're refusing employees pay rises, and they're not giving that to customers. So in this story, she says to the CFO, you are awarding yourself £400,000 krona. It's set in Sweden, but £400,000 bonus this year for admitting cutbacks. And the reason you can get away with that is because you're guaranteeing that the shareholders are going to get dividends at the end of the year. And she was trying to explain, he said, but that's capitalism. And she's like, yes, exactly. Capitalism is not about always being able to pay your shareholders. Capitalism is about the shareholders taking a risk. Shareholders need to pay into a company and have to understand that they may lose money. But I guarantee you a significant proportion of shareholders in the last year and a half probably haven't lost money. They've probably been protected. Some may have done in some companies, but they've been very much protected because what the companies have done is gone, oh, there's a bit of a cost of living crisis. So what we're going to do is we're going to pump all our prices up because that's what everyone else is doing, which inflates the cost of living crisis. Yes, all our customers will suffer, but we're going to make massive amount of profits. We can give all our dividends to our shareholders. And what that does is that separates the wealth, the poverty, the wealth and the poverty gap even more than it already done. And what it's going to take is exactly what you said, Yevhenii, about a private company. What it's going to take is a company to go, this is wrong. This is not how capitalism should work. I'm sorry, shareholders, you took a risk, but we've got to protect the people. And then hopefully morality will kick in. Or it takes a government to kind of go, which generally operate on a not a 0 profit, but they operate on a reduced profit margin. So, i.e., we shouldn't have a bloody Tory government that are trying to get all their mates into these companies to buy them all out and stuff like that. But to basically go, hang on a minute, what we actually need to do is take this company back from a public-facing company to a public-owned company, so that the shareholders the shares are pumped back into the company and the public, not people wanted to make money. And that's how you get these swings in balance. So yeah, that was a really long ranty rave about how our politics and capitalism at the moment drives me absolutely scatty. I would absolutely love to sit in a courtroom with the CEO of Shell at the moment and be like, justify your $44.9 billion profit this year when these people can't buy anything. There is no justification for that. Absolutely none. I can't see it at all.
And I'd just like to add to that. So anyway, going back to condiments. No, I'm joking. So just to add to that, the thing that that also it's a fundamental principle that never makes sense for me, whether it's for a company or for an economy. Essentially, any kind of a capitalist type framework is, how can you expect growth every single year, every month, every quarter, every year in a world with finite resources? Explain that to me.
I mean, no. I mean, you can, considering the inflation, but not always if you exclude inflation out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a really interesting kind of like, how do we kind of like, how do you change that in the world? Like, I mean, like in the UK, I'm going to get an opportunity at some point. It feels like we haven't had a general election for about 10 years, Jerry. I don't know about you, but it does.
I was thinking that the other day. I know, and it's not even until next year. They're talking about potentially, I think, November next year.
Oh God, really? Anyway, but the point being that how to phrase this is that it feels very powerless to kind of change that, without sticking like the CEO of Shell in a room with me for 5 minutes. I guarantee he wouldn't give up his money by then. Yeah. But it's really difficult to kind of change that. And, but you also want the companies that you work for to make some kind of money, because you'd like to be employed and you need enough money for you to live as well. And bits and pieces like that. I think that's where, definitely I think for the three of us perhaps struggle a little bit, is because, well, I know that, both me and Yevhenii you still code. I don't code anymore. And Jerry, you have some common sense. Whether your wife agrees with that is another matter.
No.
So anything that feels illogical, you're just like, well, it makes no sense. I can't understand it. Why have we done that? Why have we done that? And yeah, I've scrambled.
I just imagine how you sitting in the same room with this CEO, and it gave me the vibes of Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk trying to fight themselves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we've not even spoken about Twitter at the moment on this podcast, have we? I mean, I'm absolutely happy to go into the Twitter
to be fair, at least Elon said that he's going to make Twitter a private company again. So
yes.
That's probably the only thing that we can agree with him.
I didn't know that. Know that. Oh, wow.
That's the only thing. Otherwise, he's made it a great platform for right-winged members to kind of get involved with. And the news today, it was the how to phrase it. He's getting rid of the ability to block people on Twitter, so you can't block people that you don't want to see or on Twitter or whatever it's called now. X, isn't it? The thing formerly known as Twitter. Yeah. I think they've changed the logo and everything. Yeah. But I think most people still call it Twitter. So yeah, right. Shall we stop ranting about politics? I mean, we can continue.
You went full political.
I did.
Political Leroy Jenkins.
It was a little bit full Leroy, wasn't it? A little bit. Apologies, listeners. I'm sure I'm going to get told off from somebody I know that does that. No, great. And the next part, I completely frazzled my own brain today, like trying to figure this. Anybody would have thought that I should be a competent, like, host, co-host, whatever you would like to call me these days. Come on, Jerry, help me out.
Host, yeah. The host of the most. It's the host of the most.
Oh, dear. Don't get me started. I've got to do Mondays. So the next bit I've got is idiom investigation. We were supposed to do these last time, but we ran out of time. And the reason we'll do these fairly quick. But basically what I've done is I've picked up some Ukrainian idioms, which I don't know if you've got the document open, Yevhenii. I don't know if you can see.
I'm going to open it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've got them in Ukrainian and in English. And what it told me was a direct translation to English. And then I've put in some additional notes, which is like what it would be, what the English equivalent idiom would be. I think by the way, some of the Ukrainian ones, Jerry, are significantly better than our English ones.
I was reading them going, what?
So, yeah.
They're like twice as long as well, and some interesting concepts.
Right, I'm going to ask you, Yevhenii. You've got to read out the Ukrainian for us on the first one, and then I'll do the So you can go.
Do you want me to read it first?
Yeah, if you read the Ukrainian for the first one.
Yeah. So the first one, Прововka Promovka.
It says talking about the wolf is apparently that one, and which is I think is the literal translation. I don't know if you but the English idiom then would be speak of the devil. Which I'm never quite sure.
Speak of the devil.
Yeah, speak of the devil, and he will appear. That one.
Yeah. That's exactly the case.
Yeah.
Have no idea why it says wolf, but apparently it means something.
Yeah, I mean, and I was about to say, would it be a religious-based thing?
I think it's more from the ancient times because we have tons of woods around Ukraine, so probably our guys back there try to hear if there is a wolf somewhere and so on. So they were just afraid of it. So that became a part of the phrase.
Yeah, and. So similar. It's like similar to us. It's kind of become a superstitious kind of like.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like do you know what the best modern example of this is? Is the Harry Potter. He must not be named. You can't say his name or yeah. Can't say Voldemort.
But at least we can say that apparently Ukrainians afraid wolf much more than the devil.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting.
Totally. Yeah, I suppose you see more wolves than devils, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm proud of myself. That was one Harry Potter reference I got. I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but I got that.
You actually got the Harry Potter reference.
Yeah.
Is that going to go down well with Rachel, or is she just going to be like, oh, for God's sake, Dad?
No, she started reading them. I started reading the books as well, and it's like, yeah, I just didn't. I'm more Lord of the Rings. I think we've had this conversation before. I'm definitely more Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
I would ask, have you read it in English or Ukrainian, or either, or neither, or both?
So Harry Potter was only in Ukrainian because I was too young to read in English. But I had a thought to reread everything in English version, considering that my memory now captures mostly movies, which makes sense, right? But there are so much details in the book, so I definitely need to read it at some point.
Oh yeah, there's whole sections, and I think 4, 5, 6. I think they concentrated on like the main storyline, but there is at least like 12 or 13 like side quest storylines. It's not. I do enjoy them, and I think actually if you're going to listen to them as audiobooks, they have been recorded by Stephen Fry. So they are very good. Like he does a very, very good impression, because I find audiobooks, they sometimes can become like a little bit flat.
Like noise at the background. Okay.
Yeah, not so much noise in the background, but like there's no emotion when you read the non-dialogue bits. So Lord of the Rings especially, like, you know, Tolkien described these grand, like, huge things, and you kind of, but the person that reads the audiobooks is a bit like, the grass was green, and this was shaped like that, and this was shaped like that, and this was shaped and it's a little bit flat. Whereas Stephen Fry kind of really puts a bit of emphasis into like the descriptive, like, you know, the staircases were moving and things like that. So cannot recommend enough actually the Stephen Fry ones, and it's quite it's like he's in that collection of characters that I would, or like narrators that I would have as a like happy to fall asleep to. So like David Attenborough, Stephen Fry, those types of people. You could very easily just
Here in Yeovil, we have a lesser spotted Dominic falling asleep under a weighted blanket.
I wish. Right, should we do the second one?
Yeah, the second one is
This is my favorite.
Показати, де раки зимують. Yeah.
So good. To show where the crayfish is wintering. And I'm not sure that's is that what you would do it?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a literal translation, it's more like when you're trying to, I forgot the right word, make sure that person afraids you or something like that.
Yeah, to teach him a lesson.
Yeah, more or less.
Is the way that I think that is the equivalent I would. Are you right, Jerry?
Yeah, this tickled me. To show where the crayfish. I'll show you where the crayfish is wintering.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to use that now instead of I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'll show them where the crayfish is wintering.
I want you to get that into the call that we have together this week.
We'll do it.
I mean, when you get used to those phrases since you're a child, it's kind of normal for you. But when you kind of rethink what it does mean for everybody, it's really gives me the chuckle.
I love it.
That's why this is one of my favorite sections when we kind of do them, especially because at work, like when we're in work, you get all kinds of ridiculous phrases like, let's send that up the flagpole and see who salutes. Some of those ones, which is like, what? Like, where is, like, and then you look into the origins of it and you go, it's got quite a conspicuous origin to it and things like that. But also it just allows, I mean, especially for myself and Jerry, just to dissect it and go, it's a completely ridiculous phrase. Why do we use it? It makes absolute no sense to us why we even think about using that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, to teach them a lesson is to basically what it says. That is, it's almost to let someone fall. Like we should let our, stockholders fail in their when the company that they've put stock into fails. Strange that, isn't it? Sorry, that got political again, didn't it?
Yeah. Shall I go with the third one?
Yes, third one.
Yeah, the third one is Біла ворона, which is, you translated it right. It's a white crow.
White crow, which we would use a black sheep on that one.
Yeah.
Which
we totally opposite. Which
is
similar, but totally different color, and
It kind of, it is. I mean, it's got the same sentiment, hasn't it? It's like you're like, if you saw a white crow, you'd be like, what? I don't think I've ever seen an albino crow. Would that be a thing that you could get?
Maybe.
Not sure.
Yeah.
I'm Googling it right
Google
now.
it.
Yeah, there is one, actually.
Is there?
Yeah. Some of them are white in color too. The white bird is also known as an albino. So it's a thing.
Yeah, because albino is like a
a generic term, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I go albino crow. And is albino when it's probably something to do with genes that just kind of a cognitive absence of pigment in the skin and hair, which are white, and the eyes, which are usually pink. So yeah,
wow.
And I think that isn't like white tigers are actually just albino, I believe, but there may be another genetic that does that one. I could be completely wrong. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, effectively, it basically is to refer to somebody who.
It looks like, they live usually in Connecticut, which is okay. Definitely not the place where I would expect them to find.
I was just looking at the wiki page actually for this phrase, and the idiom is in many languages: German, French, Italian, Croatian, Bulgarian, Hebrew, Portuguese, Greek, Turkish, Hungarian, Dutch, Afrikaans, Swedish, Danish, Spanish, Catalan, Czech, Slovak, Romanian, and Polish. So there's a lot. The same concept is illustrated in other languages by the phrase white crow, for example, Ukrainian, Russian, and Persian. Persian's an interesting one. I didn't realize that one. I'll be quite. I'm not going to try and pronounce that because I'll butcher that one. Number 4. This one's great.
Yeah, that's Підсунути свиню.
To plant a pig on someone. That one's amazing. Which is another phrase to pull someone's leg. Which I think, so Jerry, you were trying to plant a pig on Yevhenii earlier with your Subway story.
I was. Then I decided it'd be easier just to pull his leg.
I'm not. By the way, I haven't heard about pull someone's leg before, so this is something new for me. So does it mean like to do something bad for another person, right?
No, it's
to tease somebody.
Okay, no, that's not the case then in with the pig. With the pig, it's when you're trying to make something bad for the person, but not like a awful thing, but rather than some small silly thing. Yeah. So, for example, if you, I don't know, yeah. So, if you're expecting somebody to give you the presentation for the meeting and they didn't give it to you intentionally, then this is to plant the pig.
Okay. So we would go to pull somebody's leg would be to tell them, "Oh, I haven't done the presentation." Watch them panic and then be like, "Oh, I'm joking. Here you go. Here it is." Yeah. So that's to pull someone's leg.
It's not the joking with the pig.
Okay, interesting. So I haven't quite got the right kind of one. I'm not sure we've got I'm not sure I think that's just called being a dickhead.
Yeah. I don't think there's an idiom for it. I think that's just like, don't be such a knob.
Yeah.
Feel free to use pig.
Yeah, to plant a pig on someone. I quite like that one. Although I am curious how that came about. Like how you kind of it's like that's a really interesting way to kind of do it.
Probably because pig is not the nicer domestic animal to have in your house, so maybe that's the case.
Apparently they are. Apparently pigs are really, really good as pets.
Well, if you're talking about this tiny little pigs, then maybe yes, but the big one, it generates so much noise, so I don't suppose you want to sleep at the same place.
Yeah. No. They are quite noisy creatures, but no. Apparently they're really easy to train. You know, they're as easy to train as some dogs. They're considering they like to sit in mud when they sit outside. They are quite clean animals, and their diet is fairly simple. So they're quite simple in that regard. I'm sure Jerry is probably better than a giant douche in terms of like diet.
The giant douche and the turd sandwich.
You love your pets, Jerry, but
I do. But my God, are they hard work sometimes? All the time. Flipping egg.
Oh dear. Right.
Okay, shall we go to the next one? Yeah.
Yeah, the 5th one, is it? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's Вичавлений lemon, which is a squeezed lemon. I think.
Squeezed lemon. Yeah. So we would say someone is dead tired. I think is probably the same meaning.
That's the right one.
Yeah.
Cream crackered.
Yeah, cream crackered. That's not. Yeah, me and Jerry at like 4 p.m. on a Friday. We are definitely
4 p.m. on a Monday.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, we definitely squeeze lemons then. Yeah. You shriveled, definitely shriveled.
I like the way you just keep taking that further and further.
Well,
we're now with dried lemons.
Yeah, dried lemons, squeezed lemons, shriveled lemons, whatever you want to call them. I'm in one of those kind of like I'm just thoughtful moods. I blame the politics rant. That's what I blame. Number 6.
Yeah, it's під лежачий камінь вода не тече.
Wow.
Yeah, do you want to translate?
Yeah, under the lying stone, water does not flow. And for us, this would be no pain, no gain. So without working hard, you wouldn't get anything. Yeah. And I did look this one up from from kind of your perspective, and it's basically it's basically saying like the heavier you put yourself, the more rooted that you put yourself, the less likely you are going to be moved. But you've got to take the bracing of the water to kind of grow. Interestingly, the stone analogy is quite good in terms of because you can be worn down but still exist, and that just shows like true kind of grit. Whereas no pain, no gain is kind of an aspect of just dealing with things, isn't it? And or they go back to Greek times, like when it was BC. And that's BC before Christ, not BC before children, mother.
Before crisps. Before chips.
Before chips?
Yeah. BC.
Yeah.
Whenever chips were invented.
Okay. Yeah, the last one is купити кота в мішку. To buy a cat in a sack. Yeah.
To buy a cat in a sack. I didn't find an equivalent idiom, but it's basically to buy blindly, to buy without testing, so to speak.
It's not specifically to buy, it's to make an action or take anything that you don't know what it's going to be.
Oh, so it's a bit Leroy Jenkins like.
yeah, something like that.
So we found the Ukrainian equivalent of Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, to buy a cat in a sack. I hope when you re-listen to these back, Jerry, you're going to learn these phrases in Ukrainian to say back as well for our Wednesday meeting.
I'm going to do it, actually. I'm going to bring this document up, ready for Wednesday.
I want the crayfish one is one that I definitely want to see if you can get
that's
in.
Brilliant. That's a challenge, yeah. We've got to, not only in the Wednesday meeting, but just in a meeting generally.
Yes.
So on Wednesday, are you expecting to have a meeting with Ukrainians or just the...
Wednesday's a day that me and Jerry have share a meeting. We don't share any other meetings at the moment, apart from one that we have consistently on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And it's the best way to term it's probably a safe space meeting. So the conversations are very broad, and they deal with like a lot of with change and what's going on, which means it's a perfect meeting to try and get some ridiculous phrasing in, because as soon as he brings it up, everybody will call him out on it, rather than if he brought it up in a wider audience meeting, someone might go, that's a bit weird, but I'm just going to let that fly because obviously it's an office idiom I don't know about.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asked is because the reason why I'm asking this is because I don't suppose that too many people who are not native speakers might be using crayfish as a word. So the kind of interesting thing when you are not a native speaker, you might be pretty confident in a lot of topics, but those topics should be connected to your daily work or life. And things like crayfish, there is not too much circumstances where you will come up with this word, right? Because either you should eat them too often or work with them or I don't know, anything like that. So that's where it's become quite complicated. For example, for me, going to be probably pretty hard to speak about, I don't know, fishing and all of this stuff around fishing, because I don't normally doing this, and especially I'm not doing this with somebody who speaks English.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
It's interesting. Like, language is a really interesting thing, and idioms is a really good example of why languages make things very difficult. Like the English language, as a thing, like as a non-native speaker, if I was a non-native speaker to English, I don't know how you do it, because honestly, our grammatical rules are mental, right? They're absolutely crazy. It's like I before E except after C, except in thief and this word and that word and thief and weird. And there's in fact, I think there's almost more examples of where it's not the case as where it is the case.
Yeah.
Which, you know, and that's just one example of some of the crazy things. Things like as well why it's bish bash bosh and not bosh bish bash. There's all those types of rules that kind of come in. And I mean, I've dabbled in learning other language. I know Jerry's fairly good at French and has dabbled in a little bit of German as well. But it's like you can only speak about, you're right, you can only speak about specific things. And small talk is a really interesting one. Like, right, okay, you know, you're limited to kind of how's the weather and things like that. And then you throw in an idiom that, you know, if I just said, I'll speak of the devil, if you'd not heard that as an English phrase, you'd be like, what does that mean? Like, what legitimately, what does that mean? I can imagine it's very confusing.
By the way, we can test Jerry's French. Do you know how it's gonna be crayfish in French?
No. I'm gonna have to Google it. Think about crayfish.
Yeah.
English.
But the good part is that the more languages you know, the easiest for you to know to learn a new language.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm probably going to get this completely wrong, but I think it's écrivis. Or it could be écrivasse. I think écrivis.
You can click on the. You can click on the button.
Yeah, that's true.
Google Translate. Yeah, it will.
Yeah, écrivis. It's écrivis. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to copy and paste that whole idiom.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if they would use what they would use in French instead. Because you're going to directly translate that sentence.
Oh, yeah, I am, which probably is not going to make sense. Hang on, bear with me, caller.
I will show you where is baguette been eating, or something like that.
Yeah. This is where it gets lost in translation. Oh no, where's it gone? Wait 1 second. Can you feel the tension in the air?
Yeah, we can feel the tension in the air.
All right.
I'm imagining how Dominic gonna be cutting this from the recording.
Yeah. No. Sometimes I like to leave this torture in for all of our listeners. They complain that my opinions, so I have to leave it in.
So here we go. So it's pour montrer où écrivis hiverne. That's.
The thing is, only one person on our Wednesday call would get that.
Yeah. Pour montrer où écrivis hiverne. There you go.
But then it'd be like direct translation to direct translation.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dom, I'm going to suggest you to cut this phrase in French and upload this as a YouTube shorts. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Hell yes, I'm going to do this. I'm also going to do your other suggestion. It's going to be like right at the beginning. It's going to be the worst thing that's on the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Distinct Jovial podcast. Blah, blah, blah.
And you need to add French subtitles to this one.
I don't know about that one. Actually, what I might do is I might just add the subtitles in French and not the UK ones. Because my mum has a proper great laugh where she will she puts the subtitles on because she likes to see how wrong the subtitles are to what we say. And I mean, I go and edit the subtitles so they make a little bit of sense, but then what I'm then going to try, it still doesn't quite always work out. There's always bits that you miss because it's like, I think the record is 28 pages of subtitles that it's automatically generated. And YouTube has this great thing. The subtitles generated by YouTube are American. So I deliberately go through and I make them longer, because if we've ever said favorite or something like that, we spell it with a U, and the Americans don't.
Color
So
and
suddenly,
Yeah.
I think it was my dad that was working on something, a documentation. He used to work in computing as well till he retired last year. Lucky man. And he went through and edited a thing about analog catalogs for the company he was working for. Now, in American, they omit the UE of both of those words. So he just went through, find or replace, donk, and this like something ridiculous, like 1,000-page document went from like 1,000 pages to like some ridiculous like 1,200 pages, just by adding UE to the end of everywhere that analog catalog is said in a document on analog catalogs, something like that. I can't remember the exact wording, but yeah, something like that.
I didn't know
That's
that about
amazing.
the UE. Yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah, it is. And what always then I love about languages, I've had a lot of these conversations with some probably with yourself, Yevhenii, and some with other colleagues of different languages, is like, how did you come up with like that? How did you come up with, we're going to omit the UE? How did the French come up that they don't pronounce about 16 of the letters on the end of every single word because, they can? Right? It's like, who decided that was a thing? And then how did it become that everybody in the world, in that country, does the thing like that? Somebody just goes to... My favorite language, I have to admit, is Spanish, because they pronounce all the letters in the same way in every single word, every single time. So it's the easiest language to learn.
It's actually the thing why dictation in Ukrainian is quite simple, because in Ukrainian there are pretty much no specific rules in terms of how pronunciation differs to the actual words. So everything that you can hear, you write straight away as you can hear. So there is no exceptions, no specific rules. You just what you hear, you write it down. And to be honest, I like it a lot.
Yeah, I tried to do a little bit of Ukrainian. I think, obviously, because I wasn't really learning the words. I was learning basically the alphabet to begin with, or your equivalent of the alphabet. And I think my biggest struggle, I think, with the language especially on Duolingo, is it doesn't quite form some of the letters correctly. So sometimes a letter looks like another letter, and you're like, is that this one or is that this one? So, it's not quite built for Cyrillic.
We have a project that's been supported by quite a few years. Oh, sorry. My air conditioning decided to start bleeding with water on my TV.
Ooh, no, what? That's like an Amazon Alexa moment.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Well, after I just knocked my water. Yeah, save the TV, save the TV.
Well, to be fair, I'm not watching TV too often, but I still would like to save it.
It would be nice just to watch something.
Yeah, sod's law, the TV breaks, and I really wanted to watch that.
I really wanted to watch that program on air conditioning units.
Oh dear!
Air conditioning unit maintenance. There's a whole series on it.
Yeah, you guys, you definitely need some ad in your podcast, so you can use this time to, I don't know.
Yeah, let's take a break. Let's take a break for our sponsors.
Yevhenii, you can't see it, but Jerry's just died. It's just booted him out. He'll come back in a minute and he'll be like, what, the actual fridge?
Yeah, Dominic, something should happen at your side as well. They will be equal.
Don't. Oh, no.
Okay. I think I fixed it.
The issue that I currently have with cutting and splitting bits at the moment is that I don't remember where things died. So sometimes if you go back and listen to a podcast, I'll say the same phrase, like literally this, like the same next to each other, or I'll say the phrase and then I'll continue. Like, well, that's a good place, and I'll listen to it a bit longer and go, hang on a minute, I like restart things and pull things together, and it's a bit like, maybe I need to cut
general,
a different place.
Yeah, in general, I think you're making pretty good in terms of cutting things. So it's really sounds at least pretty good. I mean, I'm not getting lost during your podcast, which is the main thing.
That's our main aim. We like to kind of. I'm trying to think of the best phrase to do it. Is we like to keep it natural as possible. So I think there's been a couple of times I've just left it in, or I've cut out like really big silences. So, if this bit probably will get cut because Jerry will be gone for a while, and then we'll kind of pick something up. I might leave a bit in this is dying, and it's because it's interesting because you actually used the phrase bleeding. Which we would only use that for blood. We would say it's dripping on the television. It's
I just forgot the dripping word. Yeah. That's the only reason why I'm using the other one. That's the main kind of thing when you speak in other languages. Sometimes you can't find the right word, and you have to come up with something which is going to be pretty close.
Yes. Yeah. Honestly, Jerry, I laughed so much when it disappeared.
I tried to make some point before it started, but I don't remember what we've been talking about.
No, neither do I, and that's when it gets really difficult to do the cuts. Sometimes I just leave them in. I'm like, listen to this cluster and all this.
Sorry, I lost internet again. Anyway.
Yeah, I just remembered what it was about. So there is a project in Ukraine, which I think it's, many years old, to move the whole Ukrainian language to Latin symbols instead of Cyrillic. And actually, at first when I heard about it, I thought that, come on, that doesn't make any sense. But when I tried it, it actually made so much sense, because a lot of letters that we have in Ukrainian are similar to Latin, and there are equivalents for our specific letters, and we can leave them, not equivalents, but we can leave our unique letters as they are. For example, the same thing as Polish guy is doing. And there are a lot of people who want to migrate, because one of the main reasons for this is because having the same number of letters will help children to learn other languages, because obviously there are much more languages with Latin symbols than in Cyrillic. And the second point is purely for tourism, because it's going to be much easier to everybody who visits Ukraine to read the signs, because letters are the same. Yeah. But obviously there is this huge kind of legacy problem when you have a huge project and you need to kind of change the very core part of this project. So that's probably the only obstacle that make it never be the case.
What I find absolutely fascinating about that is the big example that I see regularly is I see a lot of your names in, I'd say, Latin, basically, because I think it's spelt phonetically in Latin characters directly translated, although there's a few oddities depending on some things. So I have to remind, or not remind is the wrong term. You tell people that when you've used an H, it's normally pronounced with a G.
It's not the G, it's somewhere between G and H. So it's closer to, I think the closer gonna be Harry Potter. So you kind of speak it, with this H, which is not H, but Harry. So
yeah.
So it's okay. So it's Yevhenii. No, Yevhenii.
Yeah, something like that. So it's like it's like very soft G, which is
Soft
closer
G,
to
Yevhenii.
yeah,
Yevhenii.
yeah. So it's closer to Harry in this
Yeah.
first letter.
Rather than sort of Yevgeny, it's Yevhenii. Yevhenii.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Obviously, names are kind of a real unique point of people, and everybody does that. You know, I always get the legend. My mother can't spell my middle name; she never has been able to, which is frustrating. For those that don't know, my middle name is Lloyd, and for some strange reason, she writes it down and she always put Llyod, and then goes, "That's wrong. It's Lloyd." Just has to write it down wrong the first time. Don't know why. Don't know why. But yes, but you know, I see a lot of the translations like literally, and sometimes you're like, oh, I wonder how to do that. And then I have a Polish friend who I've done some work for them, and she's given me the translation of the thing that I was, the website I was working on for Polish, and then had to like redesign a lot of all the code because the text was significantly longer in Polish than it was in English. So I was like, I'm going to have to change some of that code because I've only considered that it's this big, not this big. So yes, it's all these things that you have to consider when you're doing different languages. I had a small bonus question, but I'm also curious, perhaps, because I don't know what it would be. Based on the people that I know from Ukraine, one is more popular. Obviously, it's are you a dog or are you a cat person, and can you be both? Obviously, Jerry, you don't have to answer that because I know that you're a dog person through and through. Cats are very popular with people in Ukraine, I've found.
I think so, but I personally totally a dog person.
Nice.
I mean, I have tons of friends who have cats, but I think dogs are pretty much in the same percentage. So I think it's pretty much equal. The only difference, obviously, is because you don't have to walk with your cats, but some of the people still doing this. By some reason, cats are a bit more easier to live with in a certain way. But I'm definitely a dog person. I think I cannot come up with anything else in this world which can greet and love you unconditionally without any reasons as a dog.
This is true.
That's true.
And as one of my friends said, he really loves dogs, and he wants to have one. But he said, if I'm gonna have one, I will probably never gonna marry. Because dogs can give you anything, the pure love that you need, and that's enough for you.
Yeah, the emotional side of things would be done, right? I don't need that. Yeah. That's made me really laugh. That's really tickled me. I like that.
But the only reason why I don't have a dog is because I probably love myself more than I love dogs. Because it's still it's commitment in terms of when you're traveling, when something happens, and so on and so on. So I probably am gonna have a dog at some point in my life, but that's when I'm gonna be fully ready and dedicated to it, because I don't want to take some creature and don't give it as much attention as I would like to give.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think you live in a flat as well, so you haven't got outdoor space?
No, I don't.
No, yeah. That's, similar to, how I kind of make decisions, or, and I had a really interesting conversation with somebody who sort of said, well, actually, no, I quite like my life as it is, so I other responsibilities, kids and pets, are not something I necessarily want, especially not at the moment. But also, it's like we live in a 2-bed house, which feels cramped with just me and my husband, and it's like, well, yeah, it's you also want that space and that freedom and that ability to kind of really understand. Give that. It's not just the personal love, like for me, I'm traveling all over the world with Taekwondo. I can't have a pet that would only see me, that would miss me, so to speak. But also that ability to give that pet, be able to go outside and things like that. Whereas,
but if you had a Chihuahua, you could take it with you.
Chihuahua, yeah. Chihuahua. Well, I've seen you with Taco Bell in your arms.
Taco Bell. Yeah, she's very portable. She's very, very portable.
Larry, not so much.
No. 38 kilos of Larry, of giant douche. Not that easily transportable.
I suppose that's why you take him to the paddock.
Yeah, that is.
What breed do you have?
So I've got a golden retriever.
Oh,
And
they're amazing.
Yeah, they're incredible. I love them to bits. And then we've also got a chihuahua in the household. And he's 30. Larry's 38 kilos, and Belle is about 2.5 now.
Larry's poops are about the same size as Taco Bell.
Yeah, basically.
And who is the older one?
Larry. So he's 6. Taco Bell's 2. Yeah.
I remember when you got Taco Bell. Very anxious.
She was tiny.
He'd come on the calls like this with Taco Bell, like literally a head like this in his hand, and he'd just be on the one-handed on the keyboard in these meetings. And then half of the group in our meetings would be like, "Oh, show us the dog! Show us the dog! We don't care about the meeting. Show us the dog."
Yeah, she was very cute, very trembly as well for a long time. For about 3 months, she was always trembling. I don't know why.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And I suppose, I mean, the reason why is a significant program of work that myself and Yevhenii were on for a period. We just seemed, I think, just a lot of your colleagues, a lot of them had cats. I don't think I knew one of them that had a dog. That's why I wondered if it was a Ukrainian thing or whether it just happened to be the team that we were part of.
Pure coincidence, I think.
Yeah, just not the greatest cross. Maybe it's a software engineer thing.
I was thinking, is there a correlation? I wonder if there's was it spurious
correlations? That's what we had with
go.
Swanee last time.
Yeah.
I think it's actually probably more a tester thing. Because Yevhenii being a dog person, and then a lot of them were testers.
You're right. One of them who I work with has also got a cat.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, there was one dev with a cat with a cat that howled. Howled. Yeah, you'd hear it on the calls, and it'd be, you'd be like, "What is going on? What is that noise?" I've heard babies make less noise. Right. We are gonna get all of our guests to do this, Yevhenii. So you're no exception. It's got to be, what are you putting into Room 101? I am gonna set a few boundaries because I know what you would put into Room 101, but
okay.
Because
it can't put the obvious thing in there.
Yeah, it can't be the obvious. We can't put Vladimir. Well, because we'd all agree, like Vladimir Putin would need to go in there, but it's got to be something like a little bit ad hoc. Hooper got a lot of backlash from my mother about Stonehenge because she didn't understand
random thing to put. Yeah, such a random thing to put in. I love it.
So I don't know if you've had time to prepare, but we'll give you some thinking time. But yeah, Room 101. What would you put in Room 101?
And as far as I understand with the rules, we don't have to put the actual object, right?
No.
So I would probably come up with either two things. The first one, social medias that don't have downvote button, or good protection from bots. And the second thing is probably I know. It's going to be slightly political, but still, United Nations. Probably that's going to be the good.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay. Tell us why you'd want to put. You have to sell this to us now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean obviously you're asking about social media, right?
Well, yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
with United Nations, I don't suppose it works anymore after the last 1.5 hours. Oh, sorry, hours. 1.5 years that I spent here. Because if you think about it, the concept itself is pretty cool, right? That there are a big table where everybody can speak about certain things and come up with the solutions. But when you see it, like when one of the countries who has, I think it's called the same way, veto, right? Yeah, in this
Yeah.
group, and
Yep.
doesn't recognize any other rules, the whole concept doesn't work in this case.
Yes.
Because
The
during last
concept works. I think the execution at the moment doesn't
yeah,
work. Definitely,
execution doesn't work. So the whole process should be revised, because otherwise, yeah, you can just keep these conversations around this big table, but nothing gonna change, because the whole approach designed that you might sort out some unimportant things or not so important things to most of the countries, but when it comes to something really important, there is always going to be a big country with the veto option which can block this. And in this setup, it simply doesn't work. If we want to have this United Nation as a proper thing, the only way is democracy, which is also not the ideal thing. But as we all know, it's not ideal, but it's still the best that we have.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, that's I think my main point, because right now that's the thing that irritates me a lot, and especially considering how much money obviously goes to this structure, but the outcomes it's really not so great, let's say.
And I think because even for a time there was a point where I think Russia was actually like, I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's like the equivalent of the chairman. Like they are the almost like the
Yeah.
host of the meetings. Like
Yeah.
right when this kicked off, and I was like, I can't. Like, you know, like it's another one of those, like, I don't understand your logic. Like, did nobody sort of just go, do we really think this is a good idea? You know, could we have chosen any one of the other members to kind of go through this? Like, literally any of them? Like, and things like that. So,
And
yeah,
especially
no,
I like
I'm sure of
this.
you.
Yeah, you can Google. There are quite a few funny videos from the United Nations meetings where some of the countries they just cannot stand it anymore. I think I remember at least few cases with Albania and Latvia, I think, or Lithuania. It was who just said that, guys, we just wasting our time here, because they had to listen for, I think, 1 hour how Russian diplomat was explaining that there is this insects in Ukraine who was biologically changed so they can kill only Russians or something like that.
Yeah. Some of the I know you love a good conspiracy theory, and we haven't, Jerry, and we haven't done one. But some of the conspiracy crap that came out was just like,
yeah, and this guy, I don't remember, was it from Albania or Latvia, because they were speaking about same things in different order. He said, guys, what the hell is going on? There are like 50 diplomats around the world, but we still listening for this nonsense. So maybe we're gonna try to do something that means or matters. Yeah. So
yes.
yeah, that's a fun
I
story.
definitely agree with you. The current execution, definitely the execution of the UN needs to go in the bin a little bit. It needs to go in room 101. It's just not worked the last year. And it's like, even as an outsider, that you're just like, I mean, you heard my rant earlier about stakeholders and stuff like that, and I never really get into the government as somebody that feels very, I want to say, is it passionate's probably the best way, but cannot fathom the illogic stuff that's happening at the moment. And, you know, politicians, if it's like, you know, to have when you get a politician going, are we doing, you know, what the hell are we doing? Then you think, okay, now it's got really bad. You know it's bad when another politician has gone, it's got a bit mental here. It's got a bit mental. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's the reason why pretty much if we look into the European Union, it's pretty much the same, right? A lot of countries sitting at the round table and making decision. The only difference is how the decision been made. If the biggest amount of people voted for it, or diplomats from different countries, that's it. We're gonna use we don't gonna use Lightning port anymore. We're gonna start using USB-C for iPhones. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, for example, Czech Republic or France doesn't agree with that, but everybody else agrees, so we have a decision. And that's how it's supposed to work. And I think exact same thing should be in United Nations. Because
Yeah.
even if we talk about some global things that we need to resolve in the next decades, such as global warming and the whole situation with plastic and so on, okay, we can come up again and say we need to reduce the amount of plastic that we're generating. And then everybody votes for, yes, let's do this. And I don't know, China or I don't care, Sweden, everybody else can vote no, and that's going to be it. So what is the point of this voting? Because when you have more than 200 countries around the world, it's obviously
someone is going to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because the only part of the European Union, I believe, that works like that is getting into the European Union. All current European Union. Oh, no, that's NATO. I'm talking about NATO now. NATO has that same position. Like, to be part of NATO, every single NATO country has to agree. It's got to be unanimous. So, yes. Whereas, you're right. The European Union has a collective. And also, I believe... I can hear Samwise screaming at me because this is Samwise's bread and butter. But I believe that they have a neutral as the head. I can't remember the name of the.
Oh.
But it's not a specific country. Yeah, one of them. I can't remember what it is, but there's definitely one where it's not a country specific. Like a country doesn't host it for a bit. It is a neutral, kind of
like a counselor,
shall we say? Yeah, a little bit like that. Almost like I wanted to say president, but I knew that was the wrong word.
I think it's head of Euro Commission you're talking about, or
potentially I am. Yeah, potentially.
I thought you were talking about NATO because it's Jens Stoltenberg, isn't it?
But there is Ursula von der Leyen for European Union. So
that's it. Ursula von der Leyen, that's the one.
That's it.
Yeah, because I remember that he did all of the negotiating with the UK when we voted for Brexit. The world's dumbest thing that we've ever done in our 20,000-year history, and we've done some incredibly dumb things as a country, but it's definitely up there. And there was a lot of negotiating around Brexit and that, and I remember there was a lot about that. And some of the stuff that he would say about it, I was like, I agree with this man. Why I don't agree with what we're doing in our country? Hey-ho.
By the way, ironically, it really helped Ukraine in a way because UK was able to make the decisions without any consultation with other European countries. So you guys were helping us much faster than anybody else.
That's true. Yeah.
This is very true. It is and I repeat, the only decision that I agree with Boris Johnson. It's the only Boris Johnson decision. I went, do you know what, mate? That was good. Well done.
Good call. Yeah.
I will give you a round of applause. Everything else you've done, you're a moron. But we can go from there. And then the social media.
Yeah, I think I've touched this topic a bit last time. And obviously, I could be biased because of circumstances, but the thing is that a lot of things around the world currently being shaped because of the way information being delivered to the people around the world. And when you don't have don't vote button, the thing that happens is that for example, known Russian bots farms generating traffic of like 10,000 users goes to some Facebook post saying that actually, I think I also touched this topic last time, or maybe just in conversation with Dom, there was at the beginning of the war when they realized that it's not going to be like 3 days walk through and Kiev going to be under Russia. They started to generating ideas what this war about and who started it, just to kind of give the narrative to the internal audience. And one of my favorite theories that they generated is that actually war in Ukraine being started by UK government because
Yeah,
because the royal family wanted to distract everybody from Prince Andrew scandal. So yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but there is an audience who knows nothing about what's going on in the world, and when they go to the Facebook or any other social media, they see this post, and then what's gonna they see, like 10,000 likes, and the top comment there from the bot as well gonna be, actually it makes tons of sense because of, and three stupid phrases going next just to justify this. And this person gonna see that it's not, even if they think that the actual post doesn't make really sense, but when they open comments and see there are lots of people who support this, it makes an influence on this person, because they started to think, well, if everybody agrees that this makes sense, maybe it's not so crazy to think about it. So maybe there is some truth here. And that's how it really works. So this is just an example of the most stupid false news ever, but usually they work much more smarter, and they try to mix, like, for example, 80% of truth with 20% of false information, and come up with and make this mix. And yeah, that's the way to go.
And the way that it works, there's a psychological phenomenon. Oh, I love a bit of psychology. Hey, so the best experiment I've ever seen of this, they were in a waiting room, in a doctor's waiting room, and they had a bunch of actors in there, as well as like a couple of normal patients, but the majority of the room was actors. And there was they played a tone, like a beep or something, over the tannoy randomly, but sort of like every 2 to 3 minutes. And every time the tone played, everybody stood up, then all the actors stood up and then sat down. Right. And then gradually over time, the other patients were like, oh, do I need to, they followed the crowd, stood up and sat down. Like, there's no inkling to do this. And what they did then, and then the further a bit experiment, it's just, that shows how people are attracted to a following, why groups influence. They don't want to be the black sheep, or what was it called? The white crow, that was it. Yeah, I've got it in.
Or the crayfish.
But what they eventually did is the actors went to their fake doctor's appointments, and more patients came in. Eventually, after a couple of hours, none of the people in the room were the actors; they were all just patients. But all of them were very steadfastly beep, and then they'd sit down, beep, and then they sit down, very steadfast, and kind of got that. And they also do it with monkeys as well, where they got 4 monkeys in a room, and they put like a bunch of bananas at the top of a in the middle of the room, and there's a ladder. But every time a monkey went up the ladder to go and get the bananas, they would spray them with really cold water, like from a fire hose, like enough to kind of, monkey's like, oh, I don't want to do that. And, each monkey tried it, and each monkey got sprayed. And eventually would take out one of the monkeys and put in a new one. And that monkey would then go and try and get up the thing, and they would spray it with cold water. Then they would swap. But then a monkey would... Oh, sorry, what they do is they spray all the monkeys with water. Sorry, correction. Right? And eventually they would replace the monkey. It would go to climb up the ladder, and all the monkeys would stop it because they didn't want to be sprayed with cold water. Right? And again, after enough time, they would replace all 4 of the original monkeys. So the 4 monkeys that were left, that were in the cage, knew not to go and get the bananas, but they had no idea why. And that's an extension on that, like follow the crowd. And it's why sometimes you always get, they sort of encourage people to question things, like, because if one of those monkeys just questions you, but why can't we go there? We all get sprayed. And the other 3 monkeys, they've been replaced, would be like, oh, I don't know. Everyone else has told us not to kind of go up there. And it isn't till somebody then tries to break that norm. And that's how, like, conspiracy theories would come along, because, like, bots will push something in social media or the news or whatever. And it isn't till somebody questions and go, folks, this is really silly, but you have to be brave enough to kind of be outside of the norm on that occasion. He says. He says. So yeah, and I agree with the social media. I would love to.
Yeah, 100%.
I'd love to get rid of social media unless you can prove who you are. So it's like you almost need a passport or your driving license to sign up, so that when people do something idiotic, you know who they are.
Yeah.
There's consequences. There's accountability. There's a great advert. I can't remember how they did what the thing is, but they come up with a box. There's a guy in boxing gloves, and they knock on the door of this person, and they go, "Are you Squidman 32 on whatever?" And he goes, "Yeah, yes, that's me." And he says, "Well, on January the 27th, 2019, you said that you wrote a post. What what a muppet! Anybody could take a punch from XY, this boxer." And they said, "Well, here's this boxer," and then the boxer whacks him. And Brilliant. It's like, oh well, you couldn't. Maybe you'll think twice before writing something silly on social media.
Brilliant.
I think it's a really great and powerful advert that I saw recently. So, yeah, I don't think we need convincing, Yevhenii, to put your 2 items in room 101.
No, I'll help you chuck it in there, Yevhenii.
Thanks.
No worries.
And to be honest, I don't think that having like passports data or the full identity under social media work for every single country, because I assume that's probably the case in China, but you don't have freedom of speech, so it not always works in the best way. So in the ideal world for sure, but unfortunately it's not like this everywhere.
No, that's a very fair point. Right, we've been recording for an hour and 45 minutes, but we've had quite a few breaks because Jerry's internet has decided to...
I knew I was going to... We also had a leaking air conditioning unit incident. I would just like to point that out.
Yeah,
and it happened to coincide with me losing my internet. So that was a bit...
The second time,
yeah.
So Jerry's internet is connected to your TV. That's what it is, Yevhenii.
Yeah, so make sure you keep that dry.
Yeah. But, I mean, we should probably talk about like the topical event and why we brought you in last time. And I think we can spend as long on this as you want, because I know that we talked quite extensively about it. I do actually have a few more kind of questions, a little bit like some like outside ones, but I suppose it's kind of up to you on where you want to start, like especially if there's anything difference between like now and January and what you've found like in those last kind of is it 8 months or so, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah, 8 months or so.
What is the difference? I think the main difference is that we survived through the winter, because that was the most kind of tricky case for us, because there are a lot of problems with electricity. Everybody was thinking what's going to be with heating and so on and so on. So it was a tough winter, not gonna lie. But surprisingly, the adoption to these circumstances was quite nice as well, because almost every small business that we have, at least in Kiev, but I've been in other cities across Ukraine as well, the situation is the same. Somehow, despite the whole economical issues and other stuff, they were able to buy at least one generator and Starlink. So it's kind of fun situation when there's like huge missile attack, there are blackouts, there are a lot of stuff going on, but then you just go regularly to your coffee shop nearby you and drinking coffee and using free Wi-Fi that works through the Starlink. So yeah, it was an interesting one. And I think everybody is now have much more confidence in the next winter, although it in some ways could be worse because the kind of infrastructural, obviously the more missile attacks happening, the more problems we have. But mentally, everybody is like super prepared. So I think that's the main thing. The longer you are in this, the stronger you are to the whole situation. The downside, probably the only that I can see right now, is that everybody took it really good in terms of like how to tackle this situation, and people from all of the country doing incredible things like literally every day. But now, when 1.5 year passed, I see that mentally people are ready to continue doing what they're doing, and like be able to fight through these obstacles. But in the like normal circumstances, they became much more unstable and nervous, because when you constantly fighting with something, it's hard for you to stay untouched mentally in normal situations. So one of the probably best examples that I can give. So there is, as usually, like missile attacks, some explosions. You like sitting in the basement, continue to working, everything like business as usual. You are totally fine, and then you go to again coffee shop, and your favorite, I don't know, meal isn't available, and this is what hits you. So like a tiny thing that became are like on top of everything that been before. And that's the reason why a lot of people working with therapists right now, like half of my friends who never visited therapist in their whole life, starting doing so, because there is not much like mental batteries left to come up with this. And it really helps, really. So everybody gives a really good feedback about therapy. So in case anybody who's listening this, and they could be in different circumstances, but I totally can suggest you to go and try therapy to fight with your own obstacles.
It's quite interesting. I don't know if you've listened to our latest one, because sometimes people are not always up to date.
Not the latest one, the one before.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to really caveat, by the way, I'm not going to compare my situation to people in Ukraine. Absolutely not. So that's one of the things that I've done in the last couple of months, is to go back into therapy, and it is really helping me. Interestingly, one of the things that I am exhibiting at the moment is PTSD symptoms as well. The brain is a very, but mine is less so around like the fact that I'm sat in a bunker with missiles going over me, which is obviously quite a significantly traumatic experience. Mine is purely brain-led PTSD. So my own brain is causing myself PTSD, which is a wonderful thing to try and fix. And if anyone's got some like magic wand, I'd love to know that. That'd be grand. But I would like I also deal with a lot of things with humor, as you may have noticed. But yeah, like absolutely the therapy. And that was actually, it's a really nice kind of segue, because I was quite curious. So I've actually managed to get my current set of therapy on the NHS. Wonderful. The NHS is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But I actually wasn't sure whether these would be private or whether these would be under your medical system. I don't know if you have a medical system in Ukraine. I should have read up before.
So it's kind of all types. So I would say we can split it on the government level. So there is help for the soldier who coming back or received injuries. So there is like the program for them. There are volunteering programs as well, because we had we used to rely on ourselves more than on the government in a lot of ways. So we have powerful volunteering groups, and that's the reason why we were able to buy a satellite with crowdfunding and other stuff like that, helicopters and things like that. And then we have obviously private, as they were before, and a lot of big companies have these contracts with companies that working on well-being. So as a part of your daily work, you can book a meeting that's going to be fully or partially compensated by your company and go through the session, which is also quite nice.
Yeah, just thinking about it, knowing the company you work for, which I'm not going to, we avoid doing it, and Jerry will call out like it'll be 2-1 if I do it for ours. But yeah, I was just thinking about it. The company you currently work for, would absolutely have something being globally, and we have the same in terms of ours. It's not like our company doesn't provide it, but they have a connection with another company that then provides it, that you can kind of reach out and get support from. Although apparently in my case slower than the NHS, which I'd never thought I'd hear the day, which was interesting. And because that was the thing, I know, like in between the two times that we've done this podcast, when we spoke to Yevhenii, we one of our colleagues that we used to work with, and friends that we used to work with, obviously went out there and came back due to gaining an injury. And I wasn't sure what, like you've just said, that because he was volunteering, or part of the shall we say the defense, shall we, it was covered. But I wasn't sure if that was something that you have anyway. I'm not sure if you were in a kind of a bit more of an American system where it's insurance led, or whether it's kind of a bit more UK based, or 50-50.
I think it's closer to UK. So we have insurance, but it's not necessary, and it's not really common, I would say. Well, it depends, like what part of insurance we're talking about. But in a big company, usually it's a part of the benefit, so you get this insurance package. So yeah.
Yeah, we get we get additional private, I suppose is the best way to put it. So NHS is still there when we need it, and in fact, most of the people that we see are NHS. It's just that we can also pay. The company can also pay them privately, which can be useful, especially when our government decides to.
But by the way, I remember one more thing that changed quite significantly since our last podcast is that at least in Kiev we have a lot of foreign people right now. And
really?
if previously it's usually obviously going to be a journalist and some, again, guys with, I don't know, United Nations or something like that, or Red Cross, which is, I'm going to say, is pretty useless organization in many ways as well. I'm going to be honest.
Room 101?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of cases that were not really nice with Red Cross, where the funds go to really odd directions and so on. So in Ukraine, it's not really popular. We're trying to avoid it, and especially considering that one of the duties of Red Cross is taking care of war prisoners, which is not the case at all. So the way Red Cross works in Ukraine, obviously they can visit Russian prisoners and so on. But when Ukraine asked Red Cross about Ukrainian prisoners in Russia, they said, Russia declined our invitation, so we cannot get and see them. That's it. There's nothing you can do with this. So, okay, then it's nice that Red Cross is working into one direction only. So, yeah, that's another thing. But talking about the foreigners, now it's much more diverse. So last weekend, I've been in a restaurant, and I think 80% of that restaurant were foreigners, but not from one group, but from different groups. So there were people from Asia, there were a group from UK, there were a group of Americans, there were a group of Portuguese people, and so there are a lot of stuff going on. And I even met quite a few people in climbing gym, and I asked them, guys, if it's not a secret, what the hell are you doing here? And interestingly, that it sounds like some of the people just wanted to travel and see it with their own eyes, what's going on. So it's like, I don't know, like a vacation, shall I say? There is this funny video, maybe you can see, maybe you saw this before, about a guy in America being interviewed, and he's saying that his favorite thing to go to a country right after the disaster, because security is great, everything is cheap, and you receive so much attention.
Yeah.
So probably that's something similar here. And a lot of people currently visiting for investment purposes because they're trying to find for example, the real estate or something that could be bought cheaper right now because they think that it's gonna grow with the time. So it's also the thing. And some of them just visiting friends, as the guy I was meeting in the gym. So yeah, it's a lot of people right now here, which is quite cool, I think, given the
I mean,
circumstances.
that's also quite good because obviously you said last time that the more money that we can give to your army, the more likely you are to save people. I remember you sort of saying that about that cascade. If it was £1,000 to the army saves.
Yeah, it's like one pound for an army saves 10 pound for humanitarian support because you don't need humanitarian support if you have a strong army.
Yes, that was it. I couldn't quite remember the exact phrase, but yeah, that was definitely one of those things that you're like, yeah, I can see that actually tourism is still can be quite a good thing for people to go. And I've been to Kiev and I loved going to Kiev, except when Ivan got me very drunk, but that was Ivan's fault.
Yeah, and to be fair, it may sound pretty odd, but it's if you behave according to the rules, it's extremely safe in Kiev, and I would even say it's probably safer than in a lot of touristic cities like, I don't know, Barcelona
London.
or Paris or London. Yeah. So hear me out. So the thing is that obviously there is missile attacks, so you should be careful about them. So when it's a missile attack, you should go to the shelter. But if you are in a shelter, you are in safe. So you just have to wait until the air alert is over, and then you go back and doing your business. That's the frustrating part for sure. But if you're doing everything right, you're going to be safe. Other than that, because of the whole war situation, there are a lot of police, a lot of army around. So I don't know if there is any statistics, but it feels like there is no crime happening because of the whole situation. So most likely you will not going to be robbed on the streets or pickpocketing or something like that because there are all cameras working 24 hours a day. Everybody is looking into everything because everybody trying to find out is there any, I don't know, Russian spies or something like that. So it's pretty safe, ironically.
It's interesting because I refer to it like the risk. It's like the risk consequence like scale, where like you come to London, the chance of you being a victim of crime, shall we say, is probably reasonably high. Whether that's a moped driver snatching your phone, whether that's someone coming up and threatening you with a knife, whether that's it's actually quite high in London. And knife crime is everywhere. We're pretty good with the guns, but knife crime is quite bad. Whereas it sounds like, and I'd never really thought of it like this, but in Kiev, for example, the actual the chance of you getting involved in a criminal activity is very low. The only problem is if you do get involved with a criminal activity, like you don't go to the bomb shelter when a missile goes off, the consequences are fairly severe. That's where it is, and it's like that. Do you know the way that I phrase it, and this is it's a very dark way of phrasing it, but it's very interesting. There is a water corpse ratio for a human. So if you went to a swimming pool and there was a dead body in there, you wouldn't go in that swimming pool. But I guarantee you there are dead people in the sea, and apart from maybe Jerry, because I know that he doesn't like the sea, most of us have gone into the sea. But there are dead bodies in the sea. So there is a water corpse ratio for a people. And there is probably a risk consequence ratio where people are going, well, actually, the risk of me, that person said about security, that risk of me being involved in a crime is actually quite low. The consequences obviously are quite severe. But, you just got to follow the rules. And I think that's the same in any country. I mean, when I went to Kiev the first time, I did get stopped at security going into the country for 20 minutes. And the guy that was carrying the gun and interviewing me the questions was massive, and I'm not a small guy. He was huge. He was taller than me, and he was sideways. But I was just answering all his questions. I'd like to point out that the last 2 locations on my passport before I went to Kiev were Jamaica and the Netherlands. So you can understand what type of questions he was asking me at the time. So yes,
okay.
Yeah, we don't have legalized here. At least for now.
No. Yeah, the last 2 things I had on my was what did you do in Jamaica? Who did you see? Why were you there? And then the same about the Netherlands, and then about Kiev, and then he then he went, okay, I just want to get someone else to verify this. Pressed another button, and an even bigger guy came over, who obviously was his manager, or his manager, I suppose, somebody slightly more senior in ranking, because they're all in army combat uniform, and asked me the same questions. My work colleagues found it hilarious after, I think it was 25 minutes. But it's bad when you're in a queue for the airport, and they tape off your section, so they divert the rest of the passengers around your queue. You're like, okay, I could be here for a little while. But yes, it's those types.
I didn't know that, Dom. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I've got some great travelling stories. But like next year, November, I'm due to be going to Argentina, and like there's part of me that's really excited, but there's also part of me that's a bit like, I'm an English person going to Argentina. I've got to be you've got to be a little bit careful about what you say and where you go and what you do. So we will be sticking to like the very touristy sections, and not including that the Taekwondo tournament is probably going to be 2,500 competitors, which is double the size of the ones that I did in Budapest and Slovenia this year. So yeah, it's that risk reward factor. I'm very excited to go and see what Argentina is about, but I am apprehensive, and I'm going to be very much like, I'm going to keep my mouth shut where I can.
Yeah, if anyone speaks to you, just say "No hablo inglés," and that's it. And move on. Job done.
I'm going to have to learn a little bit of Spanish before I go out there. So yeah, that's really good.
By the way, just a fun fact, because I was talking about the air alert is over. This phrase is probably the favorite phrase during the last year, and because I have all of my tech things are in English, so we have a specific app that warns you about the air alert and the type of air alert, and notifies you when it's over. And as I found out, I've heard a voice that I've heard before, and then I found out that the English version of this app was recorded by Mark Hamill from the Star Wars. Yeah,
What?
and so the phrase that he says when the air alert is over, he says, "The air alert is over. May the force be with you," which is kind of cool.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant. That
Love
is the
it.
best thing I've heard
Love
in a
it.
very long time. That is great.
Yeah, he's a big supporter of Ukraine, so yeah, he's a nice guy.
Excellent.
I from memory, Mark Hamill, I think, is just one of those. He's just one of those good guys that you just know is a good guy. He's not been corrupted by Hollywood, as far as I know. He's just a genuine nice guy, and he's been in a lot more than most people think. Because he was
animations
the Joker
as well.
Yeah, he did. He was in the Joker. He played the Joker, and in the Batman animation, he played Firelord Ozai in Avatar: The Last Airbender, which Jerry has on his watch list. And we have I have a deadline for you to watch that as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when we have our first guest come back on that we've had on, she is a big fan of it. So yeah, we need to watch it. You need to watch it so it can be a whole discussion point. But yeah, that is cool. Mark Hamill.
Love it.
That's made my day. That has. The other bit I wanted to ask, and because this is a weird thing that I read, and I want to know if you know it's true and stuff like that. Apparently, you still get holiday if you're on the front lines.
Yeah. So I think if I'm not mistaken, you can get 10 days of vacation per year, but I might be wrong. Well, not the bank holiday, obviously, but the vacation.
10 working
Because
days?
I
Or just
think
10
it's
days?
working days.
Working days.
Yeah, I think it's working days, not the calendar days. And it's I think it also doesn't include the traveling. So, for example, if you from the western part of Ukraine, obviously probably the whole day gonna take the travel, so it will not be count as your vacation. Yeah, that's the thing. But it wasn't the case during first half of the year. But obviously they had to come up with this solution because guys are really need a vacation. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's not exactly a not stressful situation, I'd imagine at times.
Yeah, to be honest, I cannot imagine how 10 days could be enough. Obviously, it makes a huge difference, but in these circumstances, I think you will like to have 10 days vacation after the first day.
Yeah, because the distance is an interesting thing, because I know that we spoke on a week Friday about, because you were asking about Cornwall and how far Cornwall was, and I was sort of saying, oh, it's a 3.5 hour trip. I think for Jerry, Cornwall must be nearly 5 for you.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. I'm from you to the west side. Ukraine is massive.
Yeah,
and because you mentioned the traveling, how long would that be in a car?
So that's easy to answer because we used to have traveling to the west every year before, because there are a lot of beautiful places with mountains. So our normal journey takes not to the most western point around 9 hours from Kiev, and to the most western point, I think it's going to be around 12 hours. It's if you are not stopping too much during your way.
Oh, obviously, yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously,
which is
food breaks.
Which is an interesting thing in regards of electric cars, because electricity itself pretty cheap in Ukraine because we have a lot of atomic stations. But no, sorry, it's called nuclear station. I think.
Yeah, nuclear stations.
Nuclear station. Yeah. So it's pretty cheap. So potentially having the electric car is extremely cool for Ukraine. But because everybody loves to train across Ukraine, everybody hits in this problem that, okay, even if you get the Tesla, it's going to be like 500 kilometers of range, which is not enough to get me to the place I want. So that's one of the problems that we can see here, and especially considering how cold it could be in winter, and your range going to be half of the size.
Yeah, you have the Ukrainian weather is, I'd say, it's a drier, but more extreme in terms of temperature. So the UK is just wet. That's the best way to do it. It's mildly moist.
Yeah.
But whereas I've been to Kiev I've been in February and September. So February was like -20. When I was there, it was really cold. It was like one of your coldest years that you've had for years. And the snow was sort of like kind of like up here on me on the sides of the road type thing where they've plowed it. It was freezing, but it was really dry. So like your lips became chapped really easily and your hands became really dry. And then I went in September. It was probably, I think it was still like high 20s, so sort of like 27, 28, but it didn't feel that warm because it was it was really dry. So whereas when it gets hot in the UK, it's really soggy. You sweat a lot.
The humidity is awful, isn't it?
Yeah, humidity
magnifies
is that really, yeah. And that was a time where we actually walked back from it's your old office back to our hotel, which was very pleasant, other than trying to cross 8 lanes of traffic using a zebra crossing, which was interesting, but it worked, so we didn't die. I think that's the best way to do it. yeah, but then going back to the electric car thing, it's really interesting that being a thing, because we kind of go, oh, how would we survive in the UK? And I'm like, yeah, but Europe is like massive and open bordered, so how does it work there? And in fact, KP and the Sunshine Band has just done a trip from where from near me over in the west side, not quite Cornwall, but the west side of Somerset to France, and it worked because, I mean, she said it worked really well because they could stop, and then they stopped for like half an hour, 45 minutes. So they just went and had some food. Kids got a time to kind of stretch their legs and do it. So if the infrastructure's there, it's worked. But I'd imagine, but like you'd have to plan it. It's not something, for myself and, with a petrol car, I would just be like, right, I need to get to X place, fill it up, I'll run out, fill it up, off I get and carry on sort of thing. So it's a different way of thinking. And Jerry just then runs out of petrol when he's only like 100 miles from home, as he did last year, or nearly did last year.
Because somebody started some stupid rumour that we were going to run out of petrol, and we hadn't. That was the most stupid thing. Yeah. God,
but that's a really good example. That's another example of what Yevhenii said about those clickbait articles. Somebody clickbaited like an article where it said, oh, we're going to run out of petrol. And what that actually transpires to is we're actually running out of petrol because everybody thought that we were running out of petrol.
Yeah, it just... But the crazy thing was, because the media picked up the story, this is the bit that really annoyed me. The media picked up the story and said, oh, apparently people are panicking now because somebody said something that was overheard in a conversation saying that there's going to be a problem with the supply chain for petrol. But actually it's turned out to be not the case. So everyone's being urged not to panic. But that had no effect. So for about 4 weeks, everybody was panic buying, and the media kept showing queues at the petrol station. So they started the panic, and then they were fueling it
endlessly.
It's unbelievable. But that's the stupidity of it all. We talk about something which is quite sinister, and bots coming up with this content. But then when you take rational, sane human beings doing what's supposed to be objective reporting and making a problem worse, it does beg some questions. It's like, you can't be that stupid, surely, unless there's an agenda, whatever that agenda is, that you want to create the panic. I'm just throwing that out there. That's just let that marinate.
Let that simmer and marinate.
Put that in your slow cooker for 4 hours. Have a think about it.
Oh dear. Sorry, Yevhenii, you were going to say something, and
Oh no, I think I'm done. But anyway, we have a lot of power stations right now. The only problem, I think, that the coverage is across Ukraine is really good. The only problem that not all of them are fast chargers. This is the only thing that would be nice to improve. But a lot of people already riding across the country. Especially, I think Tesla Model Y is the hit. I don't think it's only for Ukraine; it's across everywhere.
Yeah, we all like our SUVs.
I have a question. I'm dying to ask this question. I only had one question, actually, to ask you about all this. How and when do you think this is all going to end?
I think nobody knows, and the person who thinks they know, they just stupid, because there are so much unknowns to this formula. So my assumption would be that probably it will take around 2 more years from this point. Yeah, and the reason for that is because everybody in Russia still thinks that business as usual. So there is a channel, I think, on YouTube that one of the Russian guys are making a questionnaire to people on the streets in Moscow, in other big cities, and usually people like, okay, I think everything is normal, so I don't think there are any changes and so on. So people don't understand what is going on. I think the small kind of understanding of something is really happening started when some unknown friendly drones started to hit the center of Moscow. But still, people trying to, when they even asked about this on the street, they said, "Oh, I don't know anything about politics." So you've been asked about the drone that's hitting the Ministry of Defense in your country, and you're saying, "Oh, I don't know anything about politics, so I don't want to be involved in all of this." So
Is
that's
that?
yeah.
I'm wondering if that's I want to pretend everything is normal, or also because if you speak out in Russia, I think isn't there quite hefty
No, I think
punishments, isn't there?
it's more about that during last 20 years in Russia there was this unspoken agreement between the government and the people that we're gonna give you money, jobs, and everything, but you don't have to be involved in politics. So just stay at your place. You don't have to make any decisions. Do the stuff that you need, but keep out from the politics. We will make stuff run without you. And that was the agreement for last 20-ish years. And it works, and it worked in a way because Russia has a lot of resources that they can sell. They generated huge revenues. So in the big cities, people pretty wealthy, so they do have everything that they need, and they don't have to be involved in the politics. And when you have this 20 years of negative selection, you end up in this situation, which is, I think, expected. So yeah, for sure, there is a percentage of people who don't want to speak to not be punished, but I think some of those people who had possibility to leave the country, they did so. But the majority of people live in smaller, distinct distinct towns of and villages of Russia, and this is a majority of the population, and they have no idea what's going on, and they happy with what they have because they have much more important questions in their life and decisions to make.
So. Yeah. You want a life of small, manageable problems, and if they've got their small, manageable problems, the bigger ones are not going to be something they worry about.
Yeah, and another thing that I think I kind of reflected when I was reading the really nice book. It's called The Culture Map. It's about how different cultures behave and work together. Really recommend to everybody who especially works in cross-cultural and cross-country teams. So on this, in this book, they have a scale, different scales about how business been kind of coordinated or managed by people in different countries, negotiations between different people and so on. And obviously, it doesn't mean that if they say that China is on this scale and UK on this scale, that everybody in these countries, obviously only those sides. There is a diversity inside of the country, but like most of the people will behave in a certain way because of the places there where they grew up and so on. And one of the scales there was showing how Russia is strict to the hierarchy. So they were giving the examples of different companies that, for example, in Netherlands, most likely the decision to be made for a company gonna be or for a team will be driven by the team lead, but decision gonna be accepted with the group. And the team lead was going to try to discuss it with everybody and come up with a decision that everybody is happy with. Whereas in Russia, if the team lead comes to you and asking what do you think about it, they consider this team lead to be a weak person because he or she are not capable to make a decision, if that makes sense. So they use that there is a command from the higher level management or I don't know, politic who will make a decision, and we should proceed with the execution. And the same thing happens during the war. If they will be drafted to take part in war, that's decision that's upper management made, so I had to do this.
Yes.
There is no negotiation point here. So I think that's a kind of mental thing that makes a huge difference in terms of how much time more this war gonna remain. But the good thing is that on the field, it in a way helps us. Obviously, I'm not the military guy and not military experts. There is tons of people who knows much more than I am. But at least from the experience of my colleagues or friends who are currently there, that's what differs us to them. Because in Ukrainian army, there is a mission and aim that they need to accomplish, and upper management they are not interested how you're going to do this. This is what you need to do, and feel free to do anything you need to achieve this goal. If this goal is not achievable, just tell us, then we will come up with other strategy. In Russia army, there is a strategy from the top, and then the signals being passed through the way. And if the down layer see that it's not possible, there is no feedback back that it's not possible. They still have to do this. So that's something that really helps us on the field.
Really interesting.
And the same way, how the I forgot the word in English when you need to find out certain places.
Reconnaissance.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So when, for example, Russian guys see that there is a possibility to hit somewhere with artillery, they cannot contact artillery directly in some cases. They have to agree this with their upper manager, and then this upper manager should say that, yes, now you need to hit the button. So this is,
crazy.
This is what really helps us right now.
Yeah. But I know corporations that work like that.
Yeah, but to be fair, they still evolving. They see that some of their strategies are pretty bad, so they learn as well. So I know that sometimes media are showing this kind of images like poor Russian guys with AK-47 from the 60s of the previous century trying to do something. Obviously, there are tons of such cases. That's totally true. But there is a huge percentage of really motivated, angry, and professional soldiers that they have, and they work really efficient. So
yeah, I'd imagine it's kind of it can depend, but again, which news station you watch, isn't it? I'm sure if you watched a news station in Russia, it'd be very different to the news stations that we watch around here and in Ukraine and things like that. So it's very interesting to kind of get that and that perspective to see what's going on, and things like that. It's always a really interesting kind of thing to think about and to really understand what's going on. I mean, one of my favorite things that I really liked about when I came and visited Ukraine, especially, is you have a slightly different way of how to phrase it, a slightly different way of conducting stuff. You're very open and honest. As a culture, you're quite if something's stupid, you'll tell us that it's stupid, right? And it wasn't so much, I wouldn't say it's a shock, because I was mildly warned about it. Warned sounds like it's a bad thing. It's not. It's a great thing. When I was pairing, when I went over and coded with some of the some of your folks over there, If I'd come up with a suggestion, the suggestion was a bit idiotic, they go, "No, that's a terrible idea." I was like, oh, "Okay, fair enough." Whereas in the UK, I might get something a little bit more lines of, there'd be a bit more.
Well, that's
not
interesting.
diplomacy.
Words around.
Yeah,
That's an interesting suggestion, Dom.
You don't. There's a bit of a bluntness, but that's because it means that everything that happens in Ukraine is always done on this almost like honesty principle. You trust each other to be honest, and I loved it. I got quite if I made a suggestion and they go, "No, that's a silly suggestion," I was like, "Oh well, okay, fine." But if I made a suggestion and they went, "Oh, so that's a really good idea," I was like, I trusted that they agreed with me that it was a really good idea. They weren't just saying that, and that was what I really loved about doing that, and that's why you describing the culture map and the way that things are, I think it's just so fascinating to me, and I love it. I do get annoyed by the Western kind of the Western niceties. I've worked for managers that were they'd come over, they'd be like, "Hi, how are you?" And you're like, "Hi, what do you want?" and go away, because I know that all you want something. And I'd much rather to go, "Hi, how you doing? I need this favor. Just tell me what you want and then bugger off," sort of thing. So I always love that.
But to be fair, I like when it's somewhere in the middle, which is why I really enjoy to work with UK guys, because I do think that you have it in the right way, because I even try to kind of do the same in my work, because I feel like some of the messages really should be kind of covered with all of these words around. But when it comes to important things, I'm still agree that you should be more direct. So,
yeah. There's honesty is a really good one, because it's as a value that you can kind of pick up. And one of the things that there's a time and a place. So the example that comes from Simon Sinek is that he says he went and visited a friend who did they were in a theatre play, and he went and visited, and he said, "I'll be totally honest, the play was awful." Right. So when she came down all excited, "What did you think?" He said, "It's wonderful to see you acting to see you acting," which is a true statement. But she wasn't in a reciprocal mood to sort of say, "Yeah, but the play was terrible." And then apparently she phoned him up 2 days later and went, "Okay, tell me honestly, what did you think of the play?" And he went, "Okay, here's where I think it needs some improvements." And he's, at all times, he's totally honest. He's never lied, but there's a time and a place to be able to deliver honesty. And I agree with you on that bit as well. It's honesty doesn't have to be brutal. It can be delivered in a good way.
Yeah.
But I also just appreciated that I think the bit that I appreciated is I knew you were being honest. When they said that's a terrible idea, I knew they thought it was a terrible idea. Right? I didn't need them to go, "Well, don't waste our time. If it's a terrible idea, let's not waste our time."
No flim flam.
Yeah, no flim flam.
No
That is,
flim-flam.
do you know, that is a very accurate statement.
There you
is
go.
absolutely zero.
Says the man who's rapidly losing light.
I've lost my marbles.
No, I've lost light. Hang on, I need to go put a light on. I'm literally sitting here in the dark. Sorry.
Yeah, it's because when Yevhenii started, obviously you're 2 hours ahead of us. So you started at 10 past 8, which we worked out was sun setting time.
Yeah.
It is now 10 past 8 for us. So it's gotten dark. It's gotten quite dark. All of a sudden, you might have seen mine switch from white to yellow. I've changed my lights to be yellow.
No, actually, I haven't noticed. So it was quite smooth.
Yeah, it was if I do that, there's a bit of a difference.
Okay.
And then I changed it to yellow just so I didn't look quite so bleached. I was looking at myself going, I look quite unwell. I look very white. I think we've been recording for quite a while, and this one didn't go into as much depth, but I think I still support. I have to admit, I regularly catch up on it, and I know. Because I know so many people, I know I've put some of my money towards things because that's what I care about. And there'll be stuff in the description for anybody that wants to donate. I'll use the same links as last time. But if there's any more that you think need to go in there, Yevhenii, I don't think I'm going to interrogate you too much tonight. I think we've touched on like politics and some humor stuff.
No,
like,
actually, I still have 2 hours if you.
Well, if you record it and just send that over,
yeah,
wang it over.
No, and for me, it just gives us another opportunity to have you on again because you're a great guy, and I really enjoy talking to you and just having you on. And I'm sure Jerry, you're
you're a lovely guy, Yevhenii, and it's great to have you on the show again. And we have to have you back again if you're open to that.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, and it really feels like a conversation in a bar, more than a podcast. And I think that's the most cool thing about your podcast in general.
Oh, thank you.
We had a suggestion. In fact, speaking of the person that made the suggestion, they've literally just WhatsApped me and they've gone, sorry for not replying because they have left me for on red for a couple of days. Samwise, I'm calling you out.
I didn't know you were going to go full Leroy Jenkins for that one.
Yeah, I was going to. That's Samwise. She can deal with it. So what was I going to say? Right. Shut up, Samwise. Leave me alone. Jerry, I'm going to call you out here. What are your final thoughts? Go.
Well, final thoughts. We can do final thoughts and then the request.
Final thoughts.
So final thoughts.
Final thoughts from you. Final thoughts from
Yevhenii. Yeah, and then
okay, and then you can put in your request.
Final thoughts from me. So I have been having conversations with somebody, a very, very dear friend of mine. We've been having conversations for a while now about friendships and connections and the power of connecting with people, and the fact that we're sitting here, Dom and I are in different parts of the UK, and you're there in Ukraine, and we are all together here having this conversation, connecting, empathizing, sharing laughs. I just think it's absolutely amazing that one, we've got the ability to do it, and it's really heartwarming that we have the desire to do it as well. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't matter, you can have all of the tools and everything in place. If nobody actually wants to connect and nobody wants to have these conversations, it won't happen. So the fact that it's happened is fantastic, and just want to say a big thank you again, Yevhenii. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Really, I really enjoyed the conversation, and as always, your final thoughts almost touches the deepest parts of your soul.
It's good. We always seem to somehow dig something like down from down below. And what's interesting is now that Samwise has stopped messaging me, I remembered why I was going to call her out. So Samwise had said to me that it should be Distinct and Jovial on tour. Samwise is in Germany, so we were like, oh, okay. So the quote I said, the thing I said to her, I'm going to call Samwise out, and what I said to her, I said, if we're going to come and do a recording at yours, you have to provide the beer. Now, I think if we get the opportunity to come out to yours, Yevhenii, like when our, let's say when our families deem it safe enough for us to travel, I think, because I think both of us would be like, let's do it, but our families might not. We will provide the beers, but maybe we need to speak to some Belgians and get you some proper Belgian beer instead of just
no. Beer's gonna be from me. I have quite a few places where I want to sit with you.
Right, Jerry, you can finish this with your thing.
Right. So this is the idea, and this is going to be a regular thing now on every single podcast. So this is a request. It's a request for a celebrity to join us at some point, whenever they want to. Okay, we'll accommodate. And every single podcast episode, we are going to nominate or call out a celebrity that we would love to have on Distinct and Jovial. So this is for the people out there that listen. Either you know the person, either you know the celebrity directly, you might do, who knows, right? I don't know who's listening. Or you know somebody that knows the celebrity, or you know the agent, or you know somebody that knows the agent. Anyway, you can do this based on the whole 6 degrees of separation thing. But I would like to call out the first celebrity of the series of celebrity call outs. We're gonna have to call it like Celebrity Call Out Corner or something like that.
Am I gonna have to make a jingle?
Catchy? Yeah, we might. Celebrity Call Out Corner. So yes, this is a call out to Johnny Depp.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now, if we get Johnny Depp on this show, then somebody I've been trying to get on this podcast for a long time will also join in a heartbeat. So,
absolutely.
Okay, so we will have 2 guests. If we get Johnny Depp, we'll get 2 for 1. Buy 1, get 1 free. If we get Johnny Depp, we'll get this person. They promised that they would join the podcast. So there you go. Okay, Johnny
Fair
Depp,
enough.
if you're listening, or somebody who knows Johnny Depp is listening, we'd love to have you on the show.
Jerry's going full manifestation. That's what
I am.
is full.
Honestly, we manifested this, and it's happened. So I'm manifesting.
Yeah.
I mean the podcast. I mean, and just how everything's panned out, and it's so there you go. That was it. That's the first of Celebrity Call Out Corner.
Call outs.
Actually, every time that you do this, you can try to come up with handshakes that can lead you to the celebrity, because you know this theory, right? That everybody knows everybody through, I think, 7 handshakes.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely
amazing.
know my pass to Johnny Depp.
Excellent.
And on that note, listeners, viewers, thank you very much for watching and listening. Thank you very much, Yevhenii, for joining.
Yes.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know it is an absolute pleasure. I mean, we catch up fairly regularly anyway, so I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you guys
Jerry,
for an amazing podcast.
Yes.
Pleasure.
No. Yeah. Jerry, thank you for, as always, for doing this with me. And to our viewers and listeners, thank you very much. Everybody have whatever you are doing with your life at the moment, make sure that it is wonderful. And we will catch you on the next one.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wow. I've pressed stop and it's just a